She said it in a way that suggested she had rehearsed the sentence to sound lighter than it was. "I don't want to get married," she said. "I haven't had my fun yet." He nodded. The word that came out of his mouth, "all right," surprised both of them. It was clean. It didn't ask for clarification. It didn't negotiate for a future date. He said it as if he were agreeing to a change in weather. For a while, nothing changed. They kept seeing each other. He kept leaving a toothbrush at her place and taking it back home. He kept being introduced as someone she was close to, which was a phrase that felt deliberately vague, like a drawer where inconvenient things were stored. Waiting didn't feel like waiting at first. It felt like patience, which he had always believed was a virtue. Time passed in ordinary ways: workdays, groceries, text messages that arrived late and ended early. He noticed how often he adjusted his schedule around her availability without calling it sacrifice. He noticed how she talked about experiences she wanted: travel, late nights, freedom, with a brightness that didn't include him but didn't exclude him either. He existed in the margins of her plans, penciled in lightly. The tension didn't arrive as a fight. It arrived as a question he couldn't stop asking himself. What exactly am I holding open here? He told himself that commitment wasn't a race. That people matured at different speeds. That love meant allowing someone the space to become who they were meant to be. These ideas sounded generous. They also required him to remain suspended, and suspension began to feel like erasure. One evening, after she canceled again, this time for a last-minute trip, he sat alone in his apartment and realized he had begun to narrate his life as temporary. The furniture was practical but not chosen. The walls were blank. He was waiting to decorate a future that might never arrive. The decision didn't feel dramatic. It felt administrative. He stopped framing his plans around the possibility of her. He signed a longer lease. He accepted a project at work that required focus and visibility instead of flexibility. He said no to a few things he would have said yes to before. Not out of spite, but out of recalibration. They talked less. Not because he withdrew intentionally, but because his life started filling in. When they did talk, the conversations were polite, almost relieved. She told him stories about cities and people and nights that blurred into mornings. He listened without jealousy, surprised by his own calm. Stability arrived quietly. Mornings with structure, evenings without anticipation. He discovered that self-respect wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It showed up as consistency. The external shift came at work, in a meeting he hadn't expected to matter. A senior partner asked him to stay back after a presentation. The conversation was direct. His reliability, his follow-through, his ability to commit without needing constant reassurance. These things had been noticed. A leadership role was offered, with a contract that made the future tangible. Authority, unmistakable and institutional, intervened not with drama but with paperwork. He signed. Walking out of the building that day, he felt something settle. The leverage wasn't over her. It was over his own time, his own direction. When he told her about the role, her response was warm, proud, slightly distant. "That's amazing," she said. "I always knew you were capable of that." The word "always" landed strangely. It implied observation without participation. Around this time, he met someone else. Not through an app or a dramatic encounter. Through routine. She was part of a project team, clear in her communication, precise with her boundaries. On their first coffee, she mentioned wanting marriage one day, without making it a demand or a pitch. Just a fact about herself, stated the way people state where they grew up. He noticed the absence of suspense. It felt unfamiliar. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. There was no clock ticking in his chest. With her, alignment wasn't something to be negotiated into existence. It either was or it wasn't. That simplicity felt like respect. The past didn't explode when it ended. There was no final argument. One afternoon, he realized they hadn't spoken in weeks. He sent a message that said he hoped she was well. She replied kindly. The exchange ended without ceremony. Sometimes he thought about the version of himself who had waited so carefully, believing patience would be rewarded. He didn't judge that version harshly. He understood him better now. Waiting had felt safer than choosing. He also understood something else. Love deferred indefinitely doesn't stay neutral. It charges interest. His life didn't become perfect. The new relationship carried its own uncertainties. The leadership role came with pressure he was still learning to manage. Growth wasn't a straight line. But the direction was no longer in question. One evening, months later, he passed a restaurant they used to talk about going to someday. He didn't feel loss. He felt a quiet gratitude that someday had finally been replaced by dates on a calendar, decisions with weight, and a future that didn't require permission. There was no celebration, no victory speech. Just the steady recognition that choosing himself had not made him smaller, colder, or less loving. It had made him available to the right things, and to the right person at the right time.